You don't need to try so hard. Realize you're right where you need to be. You had it from the very start.
Today is all about cherry picking difficult coworkers. So we're going to talk all about how to manage difficult coworkers today. So let's kind of jump right in. What is a hard coworker? What does that even mean? What is a difficult coworker? For everybody, it can mean a different thing. It depends on your personality type and how you work. Does it mean they talked about you? Does it mean that they have a really strong personality? Is their work ethic just different than yours? Do they do the minimum to get by? It doesn't really matter, but many people would define some of these traits as being difficult. If we really look at it, there's different reasons for why they might be kind of exhibiting these personality traits or acting in these certain ways. For some people, need attention. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. They could need positive attention over negative attention, but they do need some kind of attention in some sort of way. And to kind of piggyback that, maybe it's affirmation they're seeking. They may just have a very driven mindset, and this is just a stepping stone on their road to life and where they're trying to get next. And, with that in mind, they might just kind of like see themselves beyond, which in some cases can be seen as like above their current work environment. So what do you do? Sheila's driving me nuts at work today. She will not shut up, and she keeps interrupting my time. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Well, today we're going to kind of shift our approach a little bit. And so what I'd like for you to do right now is click the pause button and go and grab yourself a pen and a piece of paper, because you're going to need it for today's kind of interactive activity. All right, so we're going to dive in and have some fun kind of identifying these coworkers. Now, as we get back to these hard or difficult coworkers, your goal here is to, wait for it, what are we going to do? We're going to shop them. Everybody loves shopping. So yeah, we're going to stop worrying so much about how they're affecting you and flip it. And I'm going to kind of teach you how to use them, and you're going to shop them. So in soccer, I'm saying shop now. You've heard me say cherry pick. In soccer, when I used to coach, and this happens at any sport, but there's that whole idea of like cherry picking. And it's a way of just like taking the easy way out to get what you want. So instead of like slugging it through these coworkers, they do offer you good stuff. They offer you good lessons. If you'll open your mind up a little bit and get past your frustration with them, you can actually learn from them. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do today, is you're going to kind of cherry pick the good stuff. You're going to write it down in your little menu, and then you're going to use it. And in some cases, you can flip it right around and use it against them. Not necessarily in a vicious way, but kind of in a boundary creating way. If you are struggling with this concept, this is nothing new. Many of you probably already do it every day, and you may or may not realize it. The best kind of way I can put it is if you come from a family with lots of siblings or lots of cousins or just lots of people in general, you see a lot of life lived. You see a lot of successes and you see a lot of mistakes. And as a child or even as an adult, a lot of times we look at our families and we say, well, I don't want to be like John. Why would I want to be like him? But the point of today is to kind of tell you why you might want to be like John. Well, let's start cherry picking, baby. We're going to get that menu started. So as I work my way through some of these people, I want you to start thinking about the people that you have in your bubble of school or work or whatever it might be, and how you can start kind of stealing from them, how you can start taking some of the positive things away from them, or maybe negatives that will turn out to be positive for you. All right, we're going to start by talking about John. John is a coworker that gets away with anything he does, and he also does very little. He can do no wrong. His students are the ones that always say that he is not really teaching them. They're not really doing anything in his class. John also always magically has the money for the field trips and easily gets through all the kind of like hoops and mess of the district to do any of those kinds of things. How does John make it look so easy? Well, here's the deal. After years of working with John, John has taught me to shut up. Yeah, John taught me to shut up. He taught me that the less people know, the less they can question. So as an insecure new teacher, I always felt like I had to explain myself. I had to give my rationale for everything. I mean, you guys are doing great things. You're coaching, you're leading, you're doing extracurriculars, you're running organizations, which means you should almost have to explain yourself less anyway, because you've developed a reputation of doing. However, it kind of works against us a bit. So John's taught me to shut up and that not everything needs to have an explanation. By giving more and more details to administrators or even other teachers, all it's doing is opening up doors. It's opening up space for questions and criticisms. And so, again, the less they know, the less questions they're going to have. I'm not telling you to do things illegal. I'm not telling you to go, around people or anything like that, but it's shut up and wait for them to come to you with the questions. Let them do the thinking. Stop doing the thinking for them. That's the whole problem, right? You're already doing so much, and now what? You're going to think for the people in charge too? That doesn't make any sense. So on my menu, I write down John. I write down kind of what frustrates me about him, and then I write down what I've learned from him in my last column. The next person on my list is Mac. Mac doesn't do jack. Mac does the minimum. And when I'm working, they always magically come up to my desk and say little things like, "Why are you working so hard?" Or, "Can you please stop making us look bad?" Or whatever it might be. And Mac doesn't understand that my motivation is not to make anybody feel a certain way. It's the work ethic that my father taught me when I was 10. I can't change that. I don't want to change that too much, even though we're learning about that. So Mac drives me nuts, but you know what's funny? The students love Mac. They think that Mac's a riot. Mac has taught me over my years of stressing and over planning. Man, you would think if a sub was coming in my room, I would get those kids in order. They would have high expectations. They would already know the work beforehand. Mac taught me that none of that matters. Life will go on without me. Life will go on without you. Your sub plans really don't matter. You're not there. And as long as it's not habitual, it's okay. It's meant to be your break or your time to take care of your kids or whatever it might be. The other thing that Mac taught me was the kids' behavior when I'm not there is not my problem. I'll say that again to you. Your students' behavior when you are not there is not a reflection of you, and it is also not your problem. They're not your children. You did not birth them. You're doing your best with them every single day. But when it comes to issues, people can take it up with their parents. They can take it up with administration, but they do not need to take it up with you. You did not birth those children. So relax. Mac once told me, this is the day it really put it in perspective. Mac was out. Their sub came to me and said, "Oh my gosh, Mac's kids are just awful. I'm writing this kid up," or whatever. And I saw Mac the next day and I said, "Did you see any of your sub notes or anything like that?" And Mac said, "No, I ripped those up and I don't even look at them." Can you imagine? I'm like clutching pearls thinking about it. Like the idea that I would be out, my students, even though I call them my kids, Mac also used to do that all the time, which was great. I always say, my kids, my kids, my kids. And Mac would say, these are not your kids. And I mean, I love them and I treat them really well, but it's true. They are not my kids. And sometimes you need to hear that. Hey guys, is this thing on? Tap, tap, tap. Those students, they're not your kids. They're not. If they get in trouble, you don't go to jail. They're not your kids. So that's crazy from my work ethic background and maybe for some of you, but Mac still teaches me things. And even though sometimes I feel devalued the way that Mac talks to me about my hard work, I've been able to cherry pick some of that good stuff from Mac. So to Mac, I say, thanks, Mac. So I got my identification column on my menu, Mac for an appetizer. I got my frustrations with Mac listed out. And then I have my results or what I'll be cherry picking from Mac, the dessert. That's perfect. All right, next we're going to move on to Flora. Flora, this is kind of the reverse of what John taught me. Or not really what John taught me, but just personality. Flora does not shut up in a meeting. Oh my God. You already know. You're picturing these people right now. Flora is that person that always has a comment, that always raises their hand, that as the meeting's dismissing and the presenter's winding down, Flora has got something to say. Flora, you're that person that all the snide comments are being made about during meetings. But you know what? As much as Flora drives me nuts, normally Flora is not a bad person at heart. But what Flora has taught me is that if this person has something to say all the time and we are all forced to listen, screw Flora. I got more important things to say. No, that's not nice. It's not more important. But I have things to say that have value. So instead of withholding and thinking, oh no, I don't want to take anybody else's time during this meeting because Flora is the one always bogarting it, I'm going to speak up. Flora taught me to use my voice because she uses hers too damn much. So as an educator or a professional, what I'm saying to you is, if you have something of value to offer, raise your hand and say it. The other thing I'm going to say, you have my permission to interrupt Flora. She needs to be interrupted. You can just talk right over her. I don't know about you, but my Catholic school background says no, 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 no. But yes, 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 yes. Flora needs to know that her opinion's not the most important. You don't have to be rude. But sometimes people need to be kind of like nudged a bit. And it's important for you to have a voice in your building. You are part of the environment. You are the ecosystem. Flora does not control it all. So contribute to your ecosystem. Thanks for that little tip, Flora. I appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark Flora's contribution down on my menu as well. Thank you, Flora. Jack is next. Jack is an administrator who, it's the next part I'm doing that about. He's an administrator who's trying to get to the next level. This person's always in the building. Jack's all about those district initiatives. Jack has a tendency to measure teacher success by how the teacher achieves or appeals to those district initiatives. So if you are a veteran teacher who's been in the building for a while, this is probably your third or fourth Jack who's come along. And it's always interesting to me because these administrators are new to you. They're new to your building, but it's not a new concept. It's almost like we have to prove ourselves over and over and over again. But this constant, in and out of administration. And don't get me wrong, a lot of your schools, you're not going to have this. You might have one Jack in your lifetime, but know that there are people all over the country that have multiples. So if they can get through 3 or 4, you can get through 1. Hang in there. You can definitely do it. Have some perspective. That always helps. So understand that there's going to be 10 more Jacks during my lifetime. Reminds me, what Jack teaches me, I am a check on Jack's resume to make him, the school, or the initiative look good. And what Jack is teaching me is I have to do my job. So all those checkmark items that annoy you or annoy me, all the letter things, the SEL, the SOL, the we have to sign all kinds of documentation. We got to do the trainings, all those things. You have to do those things. So Jack teaches me that there are certain responsibilities I have to do. Got it. But Jack does not get to use me as a tool anymore as his resume building person, because Jack is not really given back, and that's not cool. Now, I am going to backtrack on Jack a little bit here, because this is not always a bad situation. This is another one of those like bonuses or thank you, Jack moments here. When you have a revolving door of administrators, and if you are doing your check boxes, it can be a great give and take relationship. Jack's in it maybe for themselves, but you can also be in it for yourself. Here's what's going to happen. Let's see the big picture. Jack number 1 comes in, there for 2 years. You guys develop a nice rapport. You kind of help him out. Yes, you've gone above and beyond, and it's annoying. Jack number 2 comes in. You have to start all over. You develop a nice rapport. You may scratch his back by doing some kind of a report or a favor or whatever. Annoying. And it just keeps going. But Jack's moving on within your district or a neighboring district. And eventually, if you stick around long enough, you end up knowing all the important people. And that's not a bad way to go. So, yeah, it's frustrating to work in those schools where things are constantly changing. People are constantly changing. But if you ever decide to move in your career, or maybe you have a really bad situation that you need help with, you now have 3 even higher level employees scattered throughout your entire district that can speak to your character and maybe offer you advice. So Jack ain't whack. We need to have a place for Jack, even though it's frustrating. And I used to have a coworker who I adore. Actually, let me just transition into Clark, because this will come back to Jack a little bit. Clark is not a difficult coworker. This is where we're going to end today. Clark is a wonderful, joyous, he's like the Santa Claus of fellow teachers. Been there for years, just happy and lovable, and you can tell that he just loves his job. Clark used to tell me all the time, these kids need us. So if I would go into Clark's room and I would have just kind of like that, oh my gosh, that look on my face like I'd been run over by a truck, Clark would always just put on his beautiful, kind smile and his beautiful puppy dog eyes. And he would say, Tim, remember, these kids need us. And he would follow it up by saying, and they need classes like ours. And what he meant by that is we are a very specialized group. I teach CTE. Specifically, I teach family consumer science classes, as discussed in previous episodes, but that's not a normal class. It's not a normal environment. It's a completely different ecosystem, as we talked about earlier. And Clark taught me that at the end of the day, if Jack is being whack, if Flora's being a Bora, I'm so sorry for these puns, if Mac is whack, it doesn't matter, because the kids are who need us. And that's who I'm showing up for every day. That's who you want to show up for every day. Just like when a bad class ends and a new one walks in, you put that fake smile on and you start over. But I like to include that one because there's almost not a day that goes by when I'm like rubbing my eyes that I think, yes, Tim, but these kids need me. These kids need my class. It is their place. It's their happy place. It's the place that they would probably call home if a class in the building was referred to as a home. And so Jack needs us, and we need Jack just the same. Don't forget it. I mean, that's a different kind of tool in your educational toolbox to make those connections with administrators and other professionals in the school. But it is important to know that you guys can need each other even if you are frustrated by each other. And to Clark, to kind of wrap up with Clark was a very special teacher. I wouldn't even call him a mentor. He was just a friend that I had, a very sweet friend that I worked with for years, who sadly passed. And he was such a part of that building that we ended up having a service for him on the football field. He was that integral. And so kind of to wrap up today, I'm going to give a big shout out back to Clark and say, Clark, you mattered. You mattered then, and you matter now every single day. And thank you for being part of my menu and keeping me going every single day. What I would like to see now is you should have a few columns. Your left column should be identifying your difficult employees. Your middle column should be your venting column, where you list out all the things that drive you freaking nuts about these people. And your right-hand column should be all the lessons or the cherry picking that you are going to take from them. And your final task for your homework is to take that list and rip it. And I only want to see the lessons learned left. Throw away the people's names. Throw away your venting on them. But take what's left over and tack it up someplace where you can see it every day. And now going forward, you've just created your own form of gratitude for people that you were having trouble with.